Well, would you look at that? Another exotic AR, 2 exotic drops in the same run. Wow. So, for a lot of new players out there, I know what you may be thinking. How on earth am I supposed to farm for exotic components? Or what are the best ways to farm exotics? Well, you have a few options here, but I'm sure many of you know that exotic components are extremely important. Why, you may ask? Well, you're going to need a ton of them if you plan on leveling up the expertise on both your gear and weapons. Fortunately, though, after the release of Project Resolve a couple of months ago, it's now a lot cheaper to level up your expertise. So if I come over here to the recalibration station and let me just select the Carbine 7 Assault Rifle for a second, you can see here that right after leveling any of your weapons past expertise 11, it will start costing you exotic components. So you're gonna need quite a bit if you plan on maxing out your gear and weapons. I recommend starting on your best or favorite builds so you avoid wasting resources. So let's get into it. The first great way to farm exotic components is to complete both your daily and weekly projects. As you can see, you get 1 exotic component upon completion of your daily project, 3 exotic components for completing your weekly, and 1 exotic caches for completing the weekly summit project. One thing to keep in mind is that if you have 3 additional characters created that are all level 40, you can complete them on those characters as well, basically tripling the amount you would normally get on 1 character. Moving on to method number 2. This method is one of my personal favorites and in my opinion, the fastest way to farm exotic components, and that's by opening up DZ crates in the DarkeZone, specifically the crates with the SHD tech symbol on them. Now, if you're not a fan of the DarkeZone or you would rather not have to deal with encountering obnoxious players, then stick around because I will be revealing more great ways to farm for exotics. So as you clear landmarks across the DarkeZone and open crates, all the loot that you acquire may be broken down into DZ resources that you can use to buy exotic caches at any of the DZ vendors. Another thing to keep in mind is that exotic components can only be received from the DZ crates with the SH symbol on them, but I still tend to open all the crates anyway for the loot so that I can break them down and collect DZ resources that I can later use to buy exotic caches from the DZ vendors. The only problem with this is that you will need to extract the DZ resources first, and that is risky if you're soloing in the DarkeZone, as players may decide to hijack your extraction. So this method would probably be more favorable in a group or with friends. So not only will you be getting exotic components from the DZ crates, but you will also be getting a chance of exotic drops from eliminating NPCs throughout the DZ, and an even higher chance from defeating elite enemy bosses at landmarks. Okay guys, so moving on to method number 3, this third method is not only great for farming exotics, but it's also great for leveling up your expertise in general, as you will be getting an abundance of loot drops, which you can later donate as junk to level up your expertise. So this method is running the countdown mission, which you can access on your open world map in 2 ways. One, by scrolling to the matchmake tab all the way to the right if you look at the top left menu. Or you can simply hover over to the far right side of the map and look for the Pentco Fairview Power Plant mission, which is Countdown. In case you didn't know, one of the fastest ways to level up your expertise is by spamming Countdown. Now, I won't go into too much detail on this, as that will be for a future video, but what you're going to want to do is matchmake for the Countdown mission. If you're solo, I recommend matchmaking on the challenging difficulty, as you may end up match-made with players that have no fucking clue what they are doing. However, if you normally run Countdown on Heroic, then no worries, as you will still be getting a ton of loot drops. The only difference is that the NPCs have way more armor, and there is a slight increase in better loot drops, but it just isn't worth wasting your time struggling to clear Countdown on Heroic with randoms, unless you are running with friends or a group that's experienced. So here's a little secret for getting a higher chance for an exotic drop. What you want to do is change the targeted loot to assault rifles. This is because there are 5 exotic assault rifles currently in the game. So the idea behind this strategy is to increase the likelihood of an exotic drop, and the best way to logically do that is by selecting the weapon or even gear category with the most exotics. Doing this will only increase your chances. So I actually managed to get 2 exotic AR drops in this same run, both St. Elmo, so guys, this method is very effective. Just make sure you successfully extract at the end, as you will get bonus credits, which you can later use to buy exotic caches from the global event vendor just outside the White House. Okay, so this next method of farming exotics is super effective, and it's perfect for players who aren't really fans of the DZ or who would rather farm in the open world in peace. You will need to clear level 3 or higher control points, and at the end, you can open these orange crates, which you can find within the settlement of the control point, with a chance to receive exotic components, similar to the DarkeZone method. In addition, you will also have a chance of an exotic drop in the open world defeating NPCs, specially named NPCs, which have a higher drop rate. The only difference is that you won't have to deal with nuisance players. If you don't mind grinding out control points, then this is the perfect method for you. Also, keep in mind that you can reset control points after completion. By doing this method, you will also be getting a ton of resources, such as titanium, electronics, carbon fiber, etc. So that's just another benefit. So if you have a favorite control point that you like to speed run through, or if you simply would like to farm specific control points for targeted loot, you may do that as well. Now, what you can do to increase the effectiveness of this farming method is to activate the global event. For example, neutralizing an NPC yielding the golden bullet will transfer it to you, allowing you to deal more damage. This just makes the grind much easier, and you can basically speed through content. So once the next global event starts, you will have the option to open it and activate it. You will also be getting global event credits that you can use to buy exotic caches from the global event vendor. Method number 5. So this will be all about farming floor 10 in the summit, and I'm sure many of you may be wondering if this method still works, and the answer is yes. And for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, I will walk you through this entire process. And just to be very clear, this is not a glitch nor exploit. So you will not be getting into any trouble for doing this. This is a method that's been in the game since the summit has been released. So the idea or concept behind this method is basically like farming a control point over and over again. Now, I will get to the details in just a moment, but what you need to do first is, of course, come to Summit by opening up your world map, hovering over to the right side, and you can either matchmake or run this mission solo. The choice is yours. Then the next thing you want to do is get yourself to any 10th floor of the summit. It can be 10, 20, 30, 40, and so on and so forth. When you get to the upper floors, floors 70, 80, and 90, for example, you will be facing multiple bosses on those floors, so that is another very effective way to get a lot of bosses in a short amount of time. Now, once you've made it to any of the 10th floors in the summit, this is where the farming method actually begins, and it's quite simple. All you'll need to do is to clear the first wave of NPCs that spawn. Once you've cleared the first wave of NPCs, you're going to see a named enemy pop up on the screen. When this happens, you're going to want to eliminate that NPC as quick as possible. And this brings me to the most important aspect of this farming method, and that is the following. You cannot clear the floor entirely, because if you do, you will not be taken back to floor 10 once you rinse and repeat this method, as you will see here on screen. Once you eliminate the boss, you may grab your loot, then pull up your map and return back to the lobby. At that point, doing this will restart the boss, and my fellow agents, you can now farm this floor over and over again as many times as you like. Now, I would just like to quickly go over the pros and cons of this method. So as you may already know, the pro of this method is very simple. If you're a solo player, this method allows you to farm a lot of named bosses in a short amount of time. So regardless of the difficulty you choose, you will always see a named boss. However, I recommend you do this farm on either challenging or heroic. Anything lower than challenging will be a waste of time. Now, if you haven't reached the 10th floor yet, you may set the difficulty to normal to speedrun your way to floor 10. Once you're there, you can return to the lobby and change the difficulty to either challenging or heroic. Feel free to activate any directives, as doing this will increase the amount of experience you earn. There you have it, my fellow agents. Thank you so much for watching. This is Prajna, and like always, if you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section, and until next time, peace out.